Hello and welcome to Burning Issues, the only program that provides you with a regular glimpse inside the Wichita Fire Department. I'm Battalion Chief Sid Newby, and in this episode we'll talk about an emergency response from the Wichita Police Department and the Wichita Fire Department that resulted in a life-saving rescue of a small child. The crew's actions gained national recognition. Joining me today are members from both departments that were involved with the rescue. I got WPD Officer Darren Sundquist and Fire Captain Boyd Lauber. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, Chief.
Talking about this alarm that resulted in some national recognition, let's talk about how it initiated and what started the alarm and how you got the information received to you. Darren.
I remember I was heading near Kellogg and Woodlawn and hearing a call come across the radio of a child that had fallen in the creek. I don't remember hearing the name Gypsum Creek, but I'm used to hearing addresses, and I heard 8300 East Gilbert and knew the area pretty well, so I figured I'm going to try and get there and do what I can, since where I was headed was not as important. So I turned on my lights and sirens and headed that way, and came in from the west side off Rock Road and tried to get to the creek as quick as I could. I saw two people on each side of the creek and tried to see if they knew, where the child was. I don't remember hearing the age of the child or anything much more as I was heading there, just trying to get there as quick as I could, but they said they didn't know where he was at that point. There'd been several minutes that had already gone by, and then the gentleman that was standing on the west side of the creek finally was able to point him out as I was running down the side of the bank. And
So the officer, a citizen, actually saw the child pointing toward you.
Right. The water was moving pretty swiftly, and you couldn't see down in it very well. Pretty dark, and it took me probably within 10 feet of the child before I could actually see him.
Right. Let's talk about the time of day a little bit, Boyd. I mean, what time of day, what conditions were like that day?
It was there had been a rainstorm that night, and it was damp and the streets were still wet, and we'd gotten a call for a level 2 submersion with a child, possibly children, had fallen into a swollen creek bed, which had rushing water in it. And we were responding out of Station 15 at Lincoln and Rock Road, and that was the address we were given also, around the 8300 block of East Gilbert. And the crews know that creek swells pretty bad after a night's rain, but that was the conditions that morning. Was still a lot of water on the street still, and that we knew that if the child was in that water, it was going to be rushing storm water in that area.
Okay, Darren, let's talk a little bit about once you got to the child and what happened from that point.
Once the gentleman was able to point out where he was, like I said, it took probably within 10 feet before I could actually see where he was. It appeared he was hung up on some rocks. There's some boulders that line the creek bed. So I slowly made my way down into the water. Because of the footing, it was tough, and the rushing water. It took another probably 15 to 20 seconds for me to reach him and see that he was fully under the water and face down. So I picked him up as quickly as I could just to get him out of the water, and held him face down to try and help some of the water leave his body naturally, and then head back out of the water where I knew I could see the firefighters were on their way with equipment that would better help him than I could at that point.
Okay, let's talk a bit about the transition then, Boyd, when you walked up and what you found on your arrival with Darren.
Yeah, upon our arrival, we had several PD officers along the creek bed, and we did see Officer Sundquist in the creek, and we witnessed him pull the child out of the creek. It was about 100 yards south of a walkway bridge. Water was approximately 3 or 4 foot deep, and it was flowing very, very fast. When we witnessed Officer Sundquist pull the child out, we stepped up operations pretty quick, and we're running down the creek to meet up with him. When we got down there, Officer Sundquist did hand the child over to our crew. We laid the child down on the bank and immediately started resuscitative efforts. The child was not breathing and was purple in color, no pulse, not breathing. So resuscitative efforts were started immediately, and we knew that he had a lot of water in his lungs. So there was a lot of transition with what we call the PIC crew, with working on this child and setting up our equipment and starting a basic life support right there on the bank.
Let's talk about the picker just for a second. That's
Sure.
just where each position, you have a position for each duty that you need to do for that child, for that patient.
Yes, it's a great system that we started a few years ago where each firefighter has a position around the patient, and each one has a specific job to do, along with the officer having to also give communications and updates and reports to incoming crews. We had numerous crews coming
Sure.
because of the submersion level and which side of the bank that we were going to be on. So after we set up our PIC crew and started working on the child and started CPR, started rolling him over and getting air and replacing water, the child was full of murky creek water, and there was a lot of water that had to be expelled out of the child to get air into the lungs.
Right. And then from that point, did the parents, the family members, you guys hooked up with them to make sure they were ready to, go to the hospital from that point, transition to the emergency room? Did you actually talk to the family members at that time, at that point? Or?
There were other officers there that were interviewing the grandfather who was watching the child, and I know the grandfather was there. I know they were still trying to get a hold of the parents before they transported the child.
Right.
But I don't remember
Right.
where the parents were exactly, but they were notified.
Let's talk about the teamwork effort between Wichita Police Department, Wichita Fire Department, also our 911 dispatchers, how that was a group effort to help with the successful rescue of this child.
It was a great team effort. It really started with the 911 call. The dispatcher did a great job with giving us really good information on the whereabouts of the 8300 block of Gilbert, but also give us some directions on close to the walkway bridge. So we kind of knew the area.
Right.
And being there with the police officers there, we were all able to work together. The WPD officers had already started their search. And like we said, we got to witness Officer Sundquist pull the child out of the water. And once we got to his spot on the creek, it was a team effort to where he handed over his expertise to our expertise, and we all worked together on the bank. Officer Sundquist did a great job working with us right there on the scene, and he never left our side, and it was a huge team effort.
Well, and that's something that I think that we're used to because we do every day. We go to motor vehicle accidents, we go to emergency medical calls, to where we are all interacting with the police, with fire, with EMS, to where all emergency responders seem like there's a seamless transition to make each one of our jobs better and easier.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Firehouse Award a little bit. That was turned into Firehouse Magazine. You both received national recognition for that. Let's talk a little bit about how or what that entailed.
Quint 15, which is a Wichita Fire Department apparatus out of Station 15, we received a unit citation award, which is a individual group effort award for that apparatus. That means everybody on that crew, on that apparatus, has been given a unit citation award for group efforts on resuscitating and life-saving efforts for this child.
Good.
And it was recognized through Firehouse Magazine. It's an annual award. They give individual awards and or unit citation awards and different types of awards. So Quint 15 crew on that day with this life-saving efforts on the child was given a unit citation award.
Well, and I was also present at the council meeting a couple weeks ago when you guys all received commendations for that also. But what I like about the Unit Citation Award is it's a team effort.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
It's
All of
not
us.
a me, it's a we. It's
Yep.
a group effort.
And Darren, you said you've spoken to the family since the child was resuscitated, and you've seen him, everything's going fine.
I saw him about 2 months after the incident, and he was happy, running around, being a little kid.
Good.
And
Good.
it was surprising that he was as alert and having fun as he was after hearing that he was in the hospital for 10 and a half days and sedated because of the deadly bacteria that was in his lungs.
Sure.
He had 4 deadly bacteria that he had to battle with, and that's kind of what kept him in the hospital for so long.
Boyd, do you want to go ahead and speak about some of the other members that were key people involved in this rescue for the fire department?
Sure. As far as the fire department, on the initial submersion level 2 that was dispatched out for the child and/or children and that had been swept away in the water, multiple units were responded. Station 15 was the closest to the incident, and Quint 15's crew was myself and firefighter Chris DeLeon and firefighter Tim Robinson. And upon our arrival, we were the ones that were actually doing resuscitative efforts on the child. But en route, we had multiple other units. With a submersion call, you get several other stations that respond to assist. And as an officer, it's my job to update them on what we have when we get there and what conditions are
Sure.
until our supervisor can get there. But as far as a team effort, there was multiple units that continued on in to make sure that we did not have any more children or people in the water, to make sure the scene was completely safe while we were doing our job on one patient.
Right, and I remember talking about the battalion chief arrived and took
Yep.
some of that responsibility from you to give you concentrate your efforts on the child.
Exactly. Upon arrival, it's also the first officer on scene has to take a command position also to make sure he's in charge of the scene, but he has to let other people know that it's coming out, other fire units know, give updates of what's going on until I can get a supervisor there to take over that role and give me a break so I can work on the patient.
Sure.
And a battalion chief showed up very quickly and was able to take over the command responsibility to give updates to incoming crews that were still en route.
Good. And Darren, as far as the police department, other key people that was important for this event for you to help you make this successful?
Yeah, I understand Officer Danny Brown contacted the family to get some more information out of them, especially with the needs of the child. And since we could tell he had possibly heart surgery, he had a scar on his chest, that was necessary information. And then Sergeant Bruce Watts was on scene with many other officers working together to get as much information and assistance that we needed. It was great to see the equipment that showed up. I understand there was even a boat ready, depending upon the conditions that we had to deal with.
Right,
So-
yeah, I know our water rescue team was alerted and they were en route during that time, because until we get there, we want to front load the incident to make sure we have all the necessary equipment we need, just in case. I want to thank both of you for coming today, and I really appreciate your efforts out there on the streets. Anything else you want to add, any concluding remarks?
We appreciate being here today, and we're both very pleased and that we had a successful outcome. It really showed great team effort amongst all agencies that showed up there, and we're very happy that Max is doing well and had a very successful outcome.
Very much. Darren?
Absolutely. Well, thanks go out to everyone, whether it be police, fire, EMS, they don't get a lot of good recognition. Their family for showing up and letting us know what we needed to know, and then absolutely Max himself.
Good. Thank you very much for being here. This concludes the episode of Burning Issues. Remember, Wichita firefighters are highly trained professionals who are your friends and neighbors. We're Wichita's bravest, and we are serving you in many ways every day.